The Sacramento Kings are coming off of a terrible 2011-2012 season. They finished 22-44, which was good for last place in the Pacific Division. They did bring in Aaron Brooks and Thomas Robinson to try to help shore up the leaks in this team, but I just don't see it happening. Let's just take a look at their starters. At point guard, you're going to have Isaiah Thomas. Now here's a guy that would not be the last pick in the draft if they redid it. He's a solid contributor for this team. Not really the kind of explosive scorer that you may think, but he was a facilitator, still got his buckets, and he was a good fit for this team. At shooting guard, you've got Marcus Thornton. Here's a guy who put up over 18 points a game, a solid scorer. He didn't turn the ball over nearly as much as the rest of his team did, and he's a pretty good shooter. He shot over 80% from the free throw line, over 35% from the three-point stripe. He's another guy that they can build around, and they have high hopes for there. At small forward, they got Tyreke Evans. Now, here's a confusing point. He won the Rookie of the Year, was a tremendous player, but he was in the position he wanted to be in. Then they started moving him around, and he struggled, and his numbers have been in a nosedive ever since. He's in a contract year, which means he's going to be motivated, but he still wants to be on the ball. He's not going to be with his team. I wouldn't be surprised to see them move him by the trade deadline. At power forward, you're going to have Jason Thompson as the starter. He's a solid guy. He's going to give you maybe 10 points, 5 rebounds a night, maybe even 6 rebounds a night. Not somebody that's going to light up the scoreboard, but he's somebody that can fill in and give you quality minutes. At center, DeMarcus Cousins. He is a beast. He's their stud. He can average 24 points and 12 boards this year. If they continue to give him the ball late in the shot clock and just expect him to produce for them, he's going to struggle. His shooting percentages weren't very good because they continued to put him in those bad spots. If they can make better decisions as a team, stop turning the ball over, stop taking bad shots, they'd be a lot better. I don't see it happening this year, but that's what they need to do. Let's take a look at the bench. At point guard, you're going to have Aaron Brooks coming off the bench. He fits the mold of the 2011-2012 season. He takes bad shots. He takes too many for a point guard. He turns the ball over too much. I don't know why they bothered going out to get him, but hey, he's there. At shooting guard, you're going to have Francisco Garcia. He's an overpriced guy, not nearly as good as Thornton, and he's not going to produce at a level befitting an NBA shooting guard. At small forward, John Salmons, another guy, a real volume shooter, someone who's going to go out there and shoot 40%. If you let him shoot 25 times a game, he absolutely would, but they don't want that and they don't need that. If he didn't make so much money, he would definitely be elsewhere. At power forward, you got Thomas Robinson. He's a hustle guy, an energy guy, someone's going to come in and defend and rebound. This is great for this team. That energy and that enthusiasm for the tough work is something that everybody needs to do on that team. If they take a lead from him, maybe they'll get a little bit better. At center, the backup is Chuck Hayes. He's an undersized guy, but he's going to battle in the paint. He'll bang around in there. Not going to put up huge numbers like Cousins will, but he'll suffice. For this team, they're not going anywhere right now. I've got them at 22-60, 5th place in the Pacific Division. For the Phoenix Suns, the post-Steve Nash era begins. They went 33-33 a year ago, good for 3rd in the Pacific Division. That was very solid considering that they don't have a lot of talent on the team. This year, they did bring in some talent, guys with potential. It's a little scary with that potential, but we'll see what happens. The starters, Goran Dragic at point guard. Here's a guy who was in Phoenix, playing behind Steve Nash and learning, went to Houston, didn't get the starts that he wanted to until late in the 2011-2012 season. From there, he put up really good numbers. If he can duplicate those numbers over the long haul of an 82-game season, they're going to do backflips in Phoenix. At shooting guard, you get Wesley Johnson. He came off the Minnesota Timberwolves trash heap, and I'm saying as a bust, he was a bust. His offense was horrible, cannot shoot, cannot pass, cannot dribble. His defense, decent. He's going to be in there for that purpose. If he falls off defensively at all, he's going to sit. At small forward, you got Michael Beasley. Here's where potential comes into play. He could go out there and get you 20 points, 7 boards a night, and no one would be surprised. But the thing is he doesn't play with any desire, especially on the defensive end. He just doesn't seem to get it, and he doesn't seem to care. Hopefully another new start will do it for him, but if not, I don't know what they're going to do. At power forward, Scola, they got him off the amnesty waiver claim, and this was a huge pickup for them. They needed toughness on this team, something that they've lacked for many, many years. Scola's not going to put up with any crap from anybody. He'll defend his teammates, and he's going to bang down in the paint. He loves that stuff, and they need guys like that. At center, Marcin Gortat. He played behind Dwight Howard in Orlando a couple of years ago, and nobody quite knew if he was going to be all that good. When he came to the Suns, he turned into a really good center. Maybe 17, 18 points, 9, maybe even 10 rebounds this year, depending on how Dragic and Gortat have with chemistry, because Nash and Gortat had great chemistry. When Gortat could just get the ball in his sweet spot, lay it in the rim, it makes it a lot easier. We'll see if Dragic can do what Nash did. For the bench guys, we're looking at Sebastian Telfair and Kendall Marshall at point guard, Shannon Brown at the shooting guard. I could see him moving into the starting lineup. If it were me, I believe he deserves to start. It's another story for another day. Small forward, you got Jarrett Dudley. He's a guy who's going to work hard like Scola. He may not put up very good numbers on the offensive or defensive end, but he does a lot of the stuff, the intangibles, diving for balls, taking charges, rebounding extremely well for a guy of his size. At power forward, because of Channing Frye's enlarged heart that's keeping him out indefinitely, it looks like Markieff Morris is going to be the backup. Last year, he made a couple of big three-point shots for the Suns, but he really was not ready for the NBA. Hopefully, a full training camp will do it for him. At center, Jermaine O'Neal. He's looking to resurrect his career. It's been a couple of years since he's been productive. He looked hurt. He had no lift, couldn't play defense. If he comes back healthy and is even close to a shadow of himself, they'll be happy with him in a backup role. For the Suns this year, I've got them going 36-46, good for 4th place in the division. Their time is coming, and they need to mature a little bit and gel as a team, and they've got a ton of potential. It's just not going to happen for them this year. When Coach Mark Jackson came over the Golden State Warriors, he preached defense, and then his team played none of it. It wasn't all his fault because the talent level really wasn't there. Last year they went 23-43, which was terrible, but injuries played a huge part as well. Stephen Curry missed a lot of time. Andrew Bogut, who came over in a mid-season trade, never put the uniform on. But this year is different. He's going to have an opportunity with a team that can play some defense, a deep team, and if he can't coach this squad up, then maybe he's not cut out for the NBA. Let's look at their starters. At point guard, you got Stephen Curry coming back. He's a guy that could shoot 50, 40, 90, something that Steve Nash has done. I'm not calling Curry the next Steve Nash. He's definitely more athletic, but he doesn't have nearly the court vision. He's still a really good fit for this team. At shooting guard, you got Klay Thompson. It's another guy who's going to spread the floor, can knock down the three-point shot. Defensively, we're going to see what a full training camp can do for him, but I don't see him making an all-defensive team anytime soon. At small forward, you've got Harrison Barnes, their first-round draft pick. They're going to depend on him to defend, rebound, and shoot the mid-range jump shot. It's nice because it's not going to be a huge pressure on him to do those things. Instead of depending on him like some of the other rookies are going to be dependent on, he can ease his way in. That's going to be really good for his development. At power forward, you got David Lee. He's going back to his natural position instead of being at center. This is going to be really good for him because he can play a more freewheeling style, something that he was excellent doing with the New York Knicks a few years back. At center, Andrew Bogut coming back healthy, defensively excellent, could lead the league in blocks any given year. Offensively, he's decent, but he's not going to wow you with his offensive skills. They're looking for him to clog the paint, play some good defense, and help Mark Jackson get defense into this team's head. Let's look at the bench. Point guard, you got Jarrett Jack, a veteran guy who can come in. He can score if he needs to or facilitate, someone that anyone would like to have on their bench. At shooting guard, you got Brandon Rush, a 6'6" guard who can shoot the rock. He shot over 40% last year from 3. I see nothing more but the same for him this year. At small forward, Richard Jefferson, another veteran guy. He's going to help to mentor the young guys. He's way past his prime, and he's a volume shooter, something that I don't want to see. If I'm a Warriors fan, you don't want that infecting your new guys and your younger guys, but he's going to help mentor guys, and he's going to do what he can. At power forward, Landry, he's a little bit undersized, not the best rebounder in the world, but he competes, he works hard, and that's the kind of attitude that Coach Jackson really likes. At center, you got Andris Biedrins. He's terrible. He's one of the worst free throw shooters in the entire NBA. He's vastly overpaid, and I'm really not sure why. When he had a good year about 4 years ago, they gave him a big contract, and he has bombed since then. Nothing they can do about it now, but let his contract play out. Nobody will take him. This year, I've got them going 42-40, good for third place in the Pacific Division. They're one of my surprise teams this year. I think they're going to push for the playoffs before ultimately missing out by one game. For the Los Angeles Clippers, they finished second in the Pacific Division with a 40-26 record last year. They beat the Memphis Grizzlies in the first round of the playoffs before getting totally thrashed against the San Antonio Spurs. They were exposed as a team as basically a one-trick pony. Chris Paul, can you do everything? He couldn't, and they lost badly. Their starters this year are solid. You've got Chris Paul, who's an MVP candidate each year. He could lead the league in assists and steals. Nobody would be surprised there. At shooting guard, if Chauncey Billups doesn't back up at point, they may put him in as the starter at shooting guard. He's a guy who can hit big shots. He's a good free throw shooter, and he knows how to get to the free throw line. Against some of the younger, less experienced players, he could beat them up. He could dominate them. But against the quicker players, he's going to struggle defensively, and he's not going to be able to get his own shot. That's going to be something I'm going to keep an eye on. At small forward, Caron Butler. Kudos to Butler for playing hard last year and playing tough. He broke his hand. He could have shut it down. Instead, he went out there and competed with his team. He gets hot in the first quarter and tends to tail off, but he plays solid defense, and he's a good fit for this team. At power forward, Blake Griffin. He's a guy that can get you 22 and 10 every single game. He's one of the most exciting electric dunkers in the league, but that's the problem, is that seems to be all he's good at doing. One-on-one on the baseline, he's pretty solid, but other than that, he struggles. Against the Spurs in the playoffs last year, they continued to let him get the ball at the elbow or the free throw line extended, and he was lost. He didn't know what to do, couldn't hit the jump shot, couldn't take it to the hole, and he really struggled. We'll see if he worked on that in the offseason. At center, DeAndre Jordan. Here's a guy that disappeared during the playoffs last year. They could barely keep him out there. His free throw percentage was horrible. His offense is terrible, but he does block shots and rebound. He competes. It'll be interesting to see if he can do anything offensively this year, aside from take lobs from Chris Paul. If that's not working, what do? The bench is pretty good. They brought in some veterans to fill in. You've got Eric Bledsoe at point guard. He's a younger guy who's athletic. He's never going to be Chris Paul. He's never going to be an all-star, but he's solid. Good fit for the team. At shooting guard, Jamal Crawford can come off the bench and light it up on any given night. He's a solid free throw shooter, a guy that has plenty of confidence to spare. They're going to need that spark off the bench, and he's the guy. At small forward, Grant Hill was brought in from the Phoenix Suns. He's a really good character guy, veteran leadership, good defense. At power forward, you've got Lamar Odom, someone who a couple years ago would have been a huge pickup, but after what he showed us in Dallas, I don't know if that emotional instability is something that this team really needs. We'll see what he does. At center, you got Ronnie Turiaf. He's not going to provide a whole lot on the offensive end. He's not going to provide a whole lot on the defensive end. He can go in there and bang bodies. He'll be good for 6 fouls a night, but I don't see him really contributing all that much. I do have the Clippers finishing second in the Pacific again this year, 47-35. They're going to get to the second round of the playoffs again, but ultimately they're going to bow out. They just don't have enough to really do it, and they're going to have to make a huge decision. Chris Paul, he's going to become an unrestricted free agent, and if he decides to leave, he could get a lot of money somewhere else. He could get more money with the Clippers, but the question is, does he want to go through this little mini rebuilding that they'll have to do? You've got a solid core between him, Griffin, and Jordan, but these veteran guys that are filling in, they're going to have to roll them over and bring in new guys. Is Paul going to want to wait a couple of years? It's going to be something to keep an eye on. A year ago, the Los Angeles Lakers went 41-25, which was good for first place in the Pacific Division. They got through the first round of the playoffs against the Denver Nuggets, but then struggled against the Oklahoma City Thunder in late-game situations. That's confusing because Kobe has always been thought of as a closer, a clutch guy, but he made a lot of mistakes down the stretch. This year, they brought in a couple of guys to try to fix that problem. Their starters at point guard, one of the guys they brought in, Steve Nash, somebody who makes everybody around him better. You can trust him with the ball. He doesn't turn it over that much for how long he has the ball during the game. And he's a great shooter, somebody that you can trust to make a three-point shot, somebody you'd love to send to the line late in games. At shooting guard, you've got Kobe Bryant. What can you say about Kobe? He's one of the best to ever play the game. Sure, he's slowing down a little bit, but this year, at least he's not going to have to play so many minutes and take so many shots. He's the only guy in the NBA to take over 22 shots per game last year. At small forward, you got Meta World Peace. His defense is sliding. He's not nearly as good as he used to be, and his offense is horrendous. Hopefully he can come in and just at least neutralize the opposing small forwards. If there's any sign of regression in him, they could bring in Anton Jameson or maybe even Devin Ebanks to start, but for now it's going to be Peace. At power forward, you got Pau Gasol. He's going to really thrive playing with Steve Nash because Nash will just get him open looks over and over and over, something that he didn't get last year. He was more dependent on creating his own looks, but he struggled doing that. Nash is going to help. At center, Dwight Howard, a guy that could win Defensive Player of the Year every single year, one of the best rebounders, especially the best defensive rebounders in the NBA. He's going to be a huge help for this team, assuming he comes back healthy from his back surgery. I don't see anything but a deep playoff run for this team. How about the bench? Backing up at point guard, you've got Steve Blake. Now, he took a lot of heat for missing a three-point shot. They brought him in to be a three-point shooter, and he was. He was one of the best three-point shooters on the Lakers last year, so I think a lot of that criticism is unfair. At shooting guard, you got Jody Meeks coming in. He's a guy that can come in and score 20 points one game and get shut out the next. His inconsistency is maddening and something that any Philadelphia 76er fan can tell you. At small forward, you got Devin Ebanks. He's a guy that Steve Nash is going to turn into a much better player than he is right now, put him in position to make shots, and he's going to defend well. At power forward, Anton Jameson. He's getting up there in age, but he's still a guy that can produce on the offensive end. Defensively, he's one of the worst at his position. He's not going to help them at all there. At center, probably Jordan Hill. Now, I see Nash turning Hill into something much greater. I'm not saying that Hill is a bad player, but he's young and experienced, and he continued to get into positions that he couldn't succeed and wasn't going to thrive. He's not a guy that's going to create his own shot. You don't want him handling the ball, but in that offense last year, they were confused and they didn't know how to use Hill. I think Nash is really going to be a maestro. He's really going to be he's going to show how much of an offensive genius he is for this team. I've got the Los Angeles Lakers finishing first in the Pacific Division at 59-23. They are going to get to the Western Conference Finals, and they are going to win the Western Conference Finals. They'll be in the NBA Finals against the Miami Heat, where they will go down in 6 games.